What's up, San Diego? Good morning to all of you on a May Gray Sunday morning, Memorial Day weekend here in America's finest city. New York Yankees are in town. New York Yankees outclassing the Padres the last two nights. I'm Braden Surprenant. Thanks again for tuning in to the Braden Surprenant Show each and every Sunday morning on 97.3 The Fan. Can I mute that? Each and every Sunday morning from 8 to 10 to get you some local programming on the weekends, stuff that we don't really get to enjoy too much that we have now taken as a station to increase our live and local lineup for us here as the number one sports station in San Diego. They made that decision last year, a couple years ago, to go live and local all day, and now doing it on the weekends. And it's a great time for me to be able to talk to you guys and talk about some Padres baseball after a couple of tough losses the last couple of nights on Friday and on Saturday, continuing to the terrible record that the Padres have in home night games. I mean, it's really remarkable how bad they are at home and how bad they are at night at home. I mean, it's really you can't even wrap your head around how poor the Padres play at home at night. I mean, there's really no explanation on it at all. I mean, I guess you could say, well, they play really well at home during the day, which is good news if you are going to the game today. Maybe the Padres can flip things around against the New York Yankees. But right now they are 3-14 at home at a night game. It's remarkable. Remarkable. You really can't believe it. And the thing is with the Padres, and again, I mean, there are nights where you sit there and you go, that's going to happen in a baseball season. And I've been fair the entire year on you can't get too high when they have nice little winning streaks, and you can't get too low when, they have weekends like this or weekends like when the Phillies came to town. It took 3 out of 4 from Atlanta, down in Atlanta. Very impressive. Atlanta is going to be one of the teams that is competing for a World Series this year. Atlanta is going to be a team that will be in the hunt for a National League Championship Series. It's going to be them and the Phillies battling it out for the NL East. I mean, they're one of the top echelon teams in Major League Baseball, and you go down there and you beat them 3 out of 4. Take care of business against the Reds, win 2 out of 3. Say everything you want about a long road trip, rain delays, playing a bunch of games in 24 hours, and then coming back home on a long cross-country trip and laying an egg. But then last night, again, same old, same old. Just outclassed by an organization that not only is going to be competing for an American League Championship Series, has World Series aspirations, but this is the second time now the top team in one of the leagues has come in and just wiped the floor with the San Diego Padres. And I think people need to have a little perspective on this Padres team and understand that, and I keep saying it, and when the Padres are playing well, people don't want to hear it, and when the Padres are not playing well, again, they don't want to consider me a homer. But it's a very mediocre ball club that is going to continue to play around 500 baseball. That's just who they are. They go as far as their starting pitching does a lot of times. You get good starts, they get good outings. They get bad starts, they get bad outings. Last night, I didn't think it was a bad start for Dylan Cease. But unfortunately for him, Marcus Stroman was better, and you only mustered 1 run, and it was a solo shot late in the game by Fernando Tatis Jr. But aside from that, the at-bats were just not good. They just weren't good. I was giving Manny praise this entire week, watching him and watching his at-bats on the road, and then last night, he shatters his bat on a 3-0 pitch. It was like that. It's just such an odd 3-0 swing. I mean, the approaches by this Padres team is baffling to me sometimes. Because you see a lot of great at-bats out of these guys in random times, and then they just put together these awful at bats where you're going, what are they looking at? What is the approach? I mean, what is just going up there and swinging? I'm going to go up there and hack. I mean, I know it can't be that. There's no way it's that. There's no way Major League. They get scouting reports. They get, reports that say with this guy, looks good with the changeup. Hit his fastball. You're not going to see too many of those. If you see it, go hunting on this. But some of these approaches are just, it's unfathomable. And you're trying to sit there and watch and go, what is the approach here? Nights that they play really well offensively, they look like they have an approach at the plate, and they're looking to do damage. They're not swinging at bad pitches. They're swinging at good pitches. And again, there's more to an approach than just swing at strikes and take balls. And I think Manny's seen that this week. I mean, I saw him in Cincinnati take a couple of pitches in the zone knowing, hey, I'm a two-strike hitter. I'm Manny Machado. I love that. Got to be able to be a hitter that can swing with two strikes. And the Padres got some dudes that can do that. But the 3-0 swing that Machado had with a couple of guys on and 2 outs late in the ball game, it's just like, what are we looking for here? It's a time and a place, I think, for some of those. I mean, you're trying to rally there late in the game. That was a tough scene for the Padres offensively. But I think the bigger issue is they have just been outclassed at home when they play, obviously, the top two teams in Major League Baseball record-wise. I mean, the Yankees are the best team in the American League, and whether or not they can stay healthy will be their biggest problem. And you look at the Phillies, and the Phillies are the same team. I mean, they're both hot right now. Padres are playing them at a tough time with these teams. The Yankees 8-2 in their last 10. And when they played the Phillies were on a heater, and they still are. They're 8-2 in their last 10. But if you want to be the team that continues to tell their fan base that we're competing and we're trying to win and, we're making a push for the World Series and, this could be a competitive ball club. Look, I get that. You can't just go out there and say we're not going to be good. But at the same time, you are what your record is one thing, at 27-28. But the top two teams in the league, if you're going to be a playoff team, you have to make those games competitive. They haven't even been competitive. I mean, the Phillies wiped the floor with the Padres all weekend long. Yeah, you know what? That's going to happen. But when you got the Yankees coming to town, the best team in the American League, and they do the exact same thing, you got to start sitting there going like, maybe we're not in this league. We're not in this league. We're not in the league of the teams that are loaded. I mean, at least put together some quality games. I mean, it's just it's been dead to rights from the start. I mean, the Yankees have jumped out the last 2 nights on some long balls. I mean, you can talk about Yu Darvish. Yu Darvish is great in the first month and a half of the season, and he had a major clunker on Friday night. You watch him, and I watched that game on TV, and you're watching him pitch, and it's leaking over the heart of the plate. I mean, his location was just off. I'm going to give Yu Darvish the benefit of the doubt. And same with Dylan Cease. I mean, Dylan Cease made one bad pitch. Made one bad pitch. Aaron Judge put over the fence. Unfortunately, that was just enough for the Yankees. That 2-run homer was good enough for the Yankees. But there's a couple of things right now with the Padres playing this poorly at home that just it makes it so hard on Padres fans. And we've talked about this before, but the Padres, I mean, they have made Petco Park the place to be. I just came back from a trip where I saw a game in Cincinnati, so the Padres Reds in Cincinnati, and I saw the Braves play the Cubs in Chicago. Great venues. Thought it was a great experience. It was cool checking out both those ballparks. I was surprised by how much I liked the Great American Ballpark, Great American Bandbox, as some may call it. Thought it was a really cool stadium. I thought Wrigley Field was pretty cool too with the nostalgia and the surrounding area, but you start going to other parks, you don't fully realize how great Petco Park is until you start going to other parks. They have made Petco Park the place to be in Major League Baseball. They've done a great job. Absolutely great job of getting people to go to the games, full house, place to be. It's a party every night. It's awesome. But here's where the fan experience suffers based on the play on the field. I mean, I've gone to the last 2 Saturday games I've gone to at Petco Park. They've played the Dodgers and the Yankees. Now, we all know the Dodgers fans and Yankees fans are annoying. That's fine. So that might play a little part to it. But when you're dishing out tons of money to go to these games, and it's more expensive now because you know why? I mean, you could say it's on the players' salaries and everything you want and where they're at financially. That's an easy way out. But the reality is the prices are expensive because people are willing to pay those. Because it's the hot place to be. Supply and demand. They're getting 43,000 people a night at Petco Park. Of course things are going to be expensive. That's a hot ticket. But what makes it not a hot ticket is when the team goes out there and loses 8-0 to the best team in the American League. And not even put up a fight. I mean, it's one thing to be 3-14 at night in your home ballpark. It's another when a lot of the times a lot of the games are not even competitive. In the last couple of weekends, it hasn't been competitive. I mean, getting swept by the Rockies is not good at home. Getting blown out by the Phillies in 3 games is not good at home. The Yankees have outclassed the Padres 12 runs to 1. And it makes the fan experience worse because not only does everybody in San Diego know how great the ballpark is, so does every other opposing fan. You show up, you spend the money, you get a couple of hot dogs and a beer, which, by the way, that cost like $50 the other day. It is what it is. I mean, I'm willing to pay those prices for a good product and a good experience, but part of the fan experience is the team going out there and playing. And when you got to sit there and listen to Yankees fans who don't even know who's on their team. They don't even know who's on their team. And you got to deal with them and the fans and deal with them in the stands about them, kicking your ass. It's not fun. It's not fun going to the games. It'd be nice to see a little bit more out of the Padres at home. I know they're not trying to lose. I mean, we could go through all the cliche. I get it, dude. They're all professional athletes. It's a long season. They got to make it through. It's a good ball club over there with the Yankees. But it's frustrating as a fan to go to games when you got to deal with some a-hole and some dude that, and all these fans that they couldn't even tell you who plays for the Yankees. And you got to deal with them the entire time just wearing you down because, they like the Tiffany and Company logo. It's frustrating. That takes away from the game a little bit. Takes away from the fan experience, which they have done a phenomenal job in making that place the place to be. But you go out there and again Friday night. I mean, you're watching the game, and again, Darvish didn't have it on Friday. I'm not gonna just tee off on Darvish. The guy's been awesome all year, but it turned into the home run derby quick, and it's just here's just a nightmarish game. And then last night again, you give up the home run early, and just kind of sucks the life out of the stadium. You got to deal with a bunch of Yankees fans being there. Again, it's not Padres fans' fault for that. By the way, it made it the place to be. But just been a tough two games for the Yankees. I mean, the Padres go out today and beat the Yankees by 10 runs. They'll still be right on pace. I mean, I said it on Friday when I filled in for Ben and Woods. What did I say on Friday? Anybody in the chat remember what I said on Friday? I said they could get swept this weekend and they're still on pace after the first 2 months, right? Because of the difficult schedule. So I'm not going to say this is all doom and gloom for the Padres, but I just think the fans deserve a little bit more when the Padres play at home. I mean, 10-18 at home, and any of those night games, they've only won 3 night games. Or 3-14 at home at night. That's unbelievable. Couldn't believe it when I saw that stat. I mean, I knew what it was. I've heard it before. But it's just tough, man. It's tough for Padres fans to have to go through that all the time. And these guys, they look like a totally different team on the road. I mean, totally different team on the road. And we've seen that from the Padres a lot. And the thing is you can't blame the ballpark anymore. Because other teams are doing very well hitting the ball at Petco Park. They got rid of the fake ivy in center field. I mean, they've made the adjustments. They're trying their best. It's kind of, put your hands up in the air. You're just, I don't know. But it'd be nice for the fans to be able to see their team, go out there and put together some good stuff at home. Otherwise, we're all going to have to make those road trips. Watch the ball club on the road. We'll be the road warriors. Padres took the loss last night on drop behind the Giants in the standings, 6.5 games back. The thing that really sucks right now for the Padres, and I know, again, just make the dance. I said that on Friday. You just got to make the dance, and they're still in contention to do that. Not really afraid of the Diamondbacks nor the Giants. Nationals, Mets, and Marlins aren't going to be competing for a playoff spot anytime soon. It's most likely the Cubs or the Brewers, maybe the Cardinals because they've won 8 of the last 10. There's not a lot. So they're in it. I mean, they're in it, and they got a lot. They can figure it out really quick. And we've seen them do it, and that's the frustrating thing. We've seen them do it against some really good teams, especially on the road. But the thing that's frustrating right now is you sit at 6.5 games behind the Dodgers, and they have just been in a free fall their last 4 games. Lost 4 in a row. They're losers of 6 of the last 10. I mean, they just have not been playing good. I mean, this is a great opportunity to put the pressure on them and saying you're knocking right there on the door. Instead, you're 6.5 games back. And now a game out of the wild card, which I know that's early. So take that for what it's worth. But the Diamondbacks are a half game behind the Padres. I mean, after today, the Padres could find themselves in 4th place. They could find themselves in 4th place. It's a tough experience all around. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973 if you want to join the show today. I'll be taking you to about 10 o'clock this morning. I'll get your phone calls today, get some fan interaction in the chat. I'll be checking that out throughout the break. We'll be talking about some other things too, not only just the Padres, but it's very interesting. I talked about this on Friday. Hal Steinbrenner said that these big contracts are a little bit too much, even for the Yankees. And they might not be doing it anymore. And they can't really add another one. And if the Yankees can't do it, a lot of other teams are going to stop doing it. And I broke down some of the numbers, and you could start looking at what a lot of these players have done since signing these 10-year deals. I basically categorized everybody that signed a $100 million or more deal since 2014, went through the numbers. Whew. Talk about not getting a return on your investment. Especially with games played, what they're doing statistically. So I asked the question, if you're going to give a player over $100 million, give him like a 10-year contract, right, which is now, they're all up to $200 to $300 million. What does that guy have to do performance-wise? What does that player have to do performance-wise where it justifies his contract? Is there anything that justifies a contract that big? We're going to talk about that in the next hour. We're going to break down some of those numbers, get your phone calls on the show today as well, talk a little bit more of that NCAA fiasco and how college athletics is basically killed. We'll see how that plays out. There's a lot of underlying conditions with that and a lot of unintended consequences with that as well that we're going to address. When we come back, we'll talk more Padres baseball. Get to your phone calls, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. It's the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Welcome back to the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning from 8 to 10, talking Padres baseball with all of you. Thanks for making our morning a part of yours. You want to join the show today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Talking about some of the struggles for the Padres at home. Another tough loss last night to the New York Yankees. Friday night was a little bit worse than last night, but very tough experience for Padres fans, obviously having to deal with some of that stuff. But let's talk about the Padres a little bit more with some of our phone callers. Before we get to that, if you haven't heard of me before but want to follow on social media at B_SURP, BSURP on X, Instagram, TikTok, also on YouTube, BSURP. We are broadcasting live on Twitter, or X, 97 through the Fans YouTube page, my own YouTube page, Facebook, Twitch, as well as Instagram. So appreciate all of you joining us today. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like. Like the video, helps with the algorithm. Try to spread the word of the Braden Surprenant Show. Let's talk with some of our loyal listeners that like to call into the show. We'll start out on the East Coast. Mitch in New Jersey weighing in. Mitch, what's going on? How's your Sunday? Happy Memorial Day to you as well, Mitch.
Sports. Do you think we can make a run at Soto next year? And I think we have to trade for a bat. And maybe that Hawk throw at Oakland. Oakland's got a couple of good bats. I just don't know the names because they treat that team like a minor league team. He doesn't want to pay. He shouldn't even have the team. They should make him sell the team. And I've spoken enough without giving you a 2 cents in. Thank you for taking my call.
Well, I appreciate that, Mitch. And Mitch brings up, he talks about a lot right there. But, you know, I said it on Friday during the morning show. Padres got to, I think they go after at the trade deadline still. I mean, they have to with, you know, kind of the expectations that they have for the front office going into the trade deadline. Again, this hasn't really changed since this weekend. I mean, everything that I've said is the same. I said even worst case scenario this weekend for the Padres, if they get swept by the Yankees, they're still on pace and right around where we thought they would be after the first 2 months of the season. They had a tough 2 months of the season in terms of opponents. The thing that makes them, they need to be better is they got to look better when they're playing some of these teams. But overall, record-wise, I mean, there's not a lot of teams that would be around 500 in that spot. So, I mean, obviously, I think you got to add a bat. It'd be nice to add a bat. They need some back-end bullpen help. I think Estrada's done a great job. And Suarez, obviously, is on his way to potentially be an all-star, I think, for the San Diego Padres. But, you know, and as great as Jurickson Profar has been, if Jurickson Profar is your best hitter, you know, you need to make a couple of upgrades. So we'll see what happens there. The contract thing is interesting. Yankees have signed a lot of big contracts. I mean, financially, with the luxury tax penalties, they're at the ceiling, and I don't know if they can necessarily add another big contract. I wouldn't be surprised if Juan Soto ends up being a Met next year. Wouldn't surprise me at all. New York Mets seem like a team that would want to do that. But again, they got to get underneath the payroll too. They got some guys coming off the books like Pete Alonso, but other than that, I mean, they're the highest paid team in baseball, and they're awful. They're awful. Let's get back to the phones, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's go to Kathy in L.A. Kathy, what's going on? How's your Sunday?
I'm doing pretty good, Braden, because at least my other team's winning really well. And speaking of the Royals, they addressed what they needed, which was pitching, because they had the bats. I mean, they added some new bats this year. But it was the pitching that was where they lacked any pitching last year. I think they lost like 102 games last year, and they're 1-8 in a row right now. But with the Padres, I get that we couldn't spend money this year. I know we had to get under the salary cap and everything. But, I mean, I know, like you said, our bullpen's doing okay. Our pitching is iffy, and we've addressed the batting situation with Arise, but we're still, the stuff at home. I'm just kind of glad I haven't been able to get out to a game so far this year because the home games have not been great for us, which is really sad because that's where we excelled the last 3 years is home games. So it's just really hard to see them going through all of this. And I don't know. I don't have a solution to this because the fact that we still probably can't spend what we need to just because we have to stand to that salary cap. Because when can we spend? Not till next year, or can we, spend before the end of the season?
Well, they can still spend before the end of the season. And Kathy, appreciate the phone call. They're still underneath their threshold of where they want to be. Their estimated luxury tax payroll right now is around 224, and they got to keep it under 237. So, they got like $13 million to work with. Obviously, with guys that you pick up at the trade deadline, you don't have to pay for their entire season. They're already currently getting paid by their current team. So if you're going to go acquire some of these players, you could go get a guy. You could theoretically get a player that's making $13 million this year, and only 8 of it or whatever, 6 or 7 of it would be, relatively at the halfway mark would be what you're responsible for. So it only count as like a $6 million player at the deadline as opposed to a $13 million player. That's why it was so great that A.J. Preller was able to get the Miami Marlins to pay for Luis Ariz and then have to pay league minimum. So he's only costing $500,000 or $750,000 towards that estimated luxury tax payroll. They actually save money on that move. And there's other moves that they can make that could stay underneath the tax and still be able to be competitive. But I would imagine that most of the Padres' targets are players that aren't going to cost a lot of money. Like, to me, if you want to look for, and Kathy, again, I appreciate the phone call. If you're going to look for potential, now this is always kind of the beginning part where if you're going to start looking for potential players the Padres should buy at the deadline, you got to start looking at players that are having a good year on a bad team, not making a lot of money. So that's why guys like, Mason Miller and Ursig of the Oakland Athletics are comparable for the Padres because they're not going to cost a lot. You have a lot of years of control in terms of like payroll. It's going to cost a lot of prospect capital. I mean, Ken Rosenthal already reported that the A's, it would take like Jackson Merrill to get a guy like Mason Miller, which I don't know if you really want to do that. And we'll see how, deals come together. And you know what? As much as you can give AJ a lot of crap for not being able to build a major league roster, he figures out some moves a lot of times where he makes things happen for the cards that he has dealt, and he has done that so far. But again, they got to be able to add to this team, and it's not like they can't add. They have the ability to add to this team, and whether or not they could save money will be another situation, and who they can send out of here to have a team pay a little bit more for a player to come in. I mean, there's a lot of question marks coming in. I saw some people in the YouTube chat go, well, if they're, a 500 mediocre team, what are you going to do at the deadline? You sell? No, you're not selling. You can't sell anymore. I said the same thing last year because it didn't work out for the Padres, and everybody's like, see, I told you should have sold. No, you don't sell when you have Machado, Bogarts, Tatis, Musgrove, Darvish, and Cronenworth all under contract in their young 30s. You can't punt on that season. Even if you're bad, you can't do it. You're just wasting a year and wasting money. You can't sell. You have nothing to sell anyway. What do you have to sell? Robert Suarez? He could opt out after 2025 anyway. You have nothing to sell. Luis Ariz, I guess, you just picked him up. Dylan Cease. I mean, that's basically it. That's not really saving you that much money. I mean, you're not paying Luis Ariz anything. Dylan Cease is making $8 million. I mean, what are you selling? What are you selling? People all the time go like, you can sell Xander Bogaerts, get rid of his contract. You cannot sell Xander Bogaerts. You can't sell him. These guys all have no trade clauses. They're not leaving. And if they leave, you're paying the money. So what are you accomplishing? Nothing. You're not accomplishing anything. Instead of having Eric Hosmer $12.8 million on your books for the next 2 years, you're going to add another $30 million to that, $39 million to that, $25 million to that until 2033? Are you out of your mind? You must be out of your mind. I don't want to hear anybody say like, oh, you could trade these guys. You can't. You're not trading these guys. The only one that you might be a little bit able to trade is Fernando. And that is the only guy on there that's valuable because he's 25. That would be incredibly stupid. It would be stupid. You're not trading Xander Bogaerts. You're not trading Manny Machado. You're not going to get anything for Joe Musgrove or Yu Darvish. Again, these guys have no trade clauses. You might be able to trade Jake Cronenworth because of the start he has had. But then people go like, well, he's good. I don't want to trade him. I mean, come on, let's think about this for a second. You have nothing to trade. So you would have to add anyway. And with the way the playoffs are, why punt? Why quit? You're right there. As bad as this weekend's looked, add a couple pieces. You'll be fine. See what it goes. Roll the dice. I mean, they did that last year. It didn't work. But I would much rather be the team that is in around conversation of making the playoffs and buying at the deadline than the team the Padres used to be that had a bunch of no-names. They were just getting their ass kicked all the time, and then anybody that was good, you just sent them away. What team would you rather be right now? I'd much rather be this Padres team, tell you that. And all the criticism that we've had on the Padres today on this show, they're all fixable problems. I mean, here's the thing. I think, and maybe Padres fans have gotten to the point where they've seen A.J. Preller wheel and deal so much that they could just buy a new team at the deadline and just get rid of all these players and people are going to pay their contracts and all that stuff. That's not happening. You've committed to these guys. These are the guys that you're rolling with, that you're building around. You're not getting rid of these guys. And if you do, you're paying them to play against you because nobody's going to give you a deal. We already know as Padres fans. I see you guys in the chat all the time. I see you guys call in. I see people complain about on Twitter when former Padres come back to play the Padres. I mean, do you want to see one of these guys on like an NL West team? No. Xander Bogaerts and Manny and these guys, I mean, as much as, you know, it hasn't happened for some of these players so far. And I think Manny's turning around. I thought his at-bat last night, his last one was bad, but other than that, he's hitting the ball better and he's turning it around. You know, I still believe in Xander Bogaerts, even though he's on the injured list. But here's the deal with Xander Bogaerts, because people want to see his contract gone. And a lot of people want to see his contract gone, not because of Xander Bogaerts, just because they can't believe that the Padres signed that contract. It's not Xander's fault. They offered him the money, he signed it. Could he be playing better? Yeah. Does he know that? Absolutely. But he's not playing at a level where paying $25 million for him to go away is better than paying him $25 million to play on the team. You're paying him $25 million a year regardless. So you either have him on the team or you pay $25 million for him to be away. It's not like you get the $25 million back to go bring somebody else in. Asinine, some of these comments. It's all right. We can educate. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Talk more about that when we come back. Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning from 8 to 10 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 8:46 on a Sunday morning. Hopefully the marine layer burns off on this May gray and it turns into a beautiful Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully all of you are enjoying time with some family and friends. Just remember why we are taking tomorrow off. For all of those that have fought and died in wars, protecting our freedoms and protecting all of us here at home. It's an honor to all of them that have given the ultimate sacrifice to all of us, for all of us, so we could live the lives that we live here in this beautiful town, in this beautiful city of San Diego, especially coming from a military town. Again, Memorial Day is different than Veterans Day. Veterans Day is the time in November where you thank all of your family and friends that have served in the military. Today is for all of those that have fought and passed away in defending our freedoms and defending this country and to give us the opportunity to live the life that we live. So for all of you that live and enjoy a great life here in America's finest city, in this military town, I'll give thanks today to everybody that have given the ultimate sacrifice for the betterment of us to live the lives that we live. And that's why we celebrate this weekend and why we all have the day off tomorrow and why we'll be enjoying Memorial Day weekend throughout the weekend. So for all of those who have put themselves in front of all of us, a big salute, and you'll never be forgotten. Let's talk about the Padres again. Again, we've been talking about trying to fix some problems, and maybe it came across as like attacking at the beginning from me, but you would like to see them perform a little bit better against some of these great teams. I'm not expecting them to sweep these teams. I'm not expecting them to take 2 out of 3 all the time. I mean, you're going to run into some teams that are flat out better than you, and that's what the Yankees are right now. With the additional Juan Soto, with the teams that they have, or with the players that they've put together. Now, I do think that the Yankees have injury concerns because these are guys that get hurt a lot, but they're doing really well and they're playing really well at the right time. At the right time. But that being said, it would be nice to see the Padres, have play a little bit better at home. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know why they're playing poorly at home to begin with. But that turned into, obviously, it's panic time again over the weekend. Our offense doesn't just disappear. Again, over the weekend, like we said. I said this week, you can't live and die with a lot of these games. It's just going to drive you mad in a Major League Baseball season. It's not like the NFL. It's not like football, right? Where you have this big, long build-up to the week, to the game, and then it dictates how you feel the rest of the week. You got to go out there and play the next day. I mean, you can't be living and dying on a game. There's so many games played. And a lot of teams, I said it a couple weeks ago, a lot of teams play at about a 500 clip throughout the season. And then they go on a little bit of a winning streak, and that's the difference. I mean, if you got a team that goes on a 10-game winning streak and plays 500 the rest of the year, they finish the season 10 games above 500. I mean, go look at it. Teams play at 500 clips all the time. All the time. Including the Los Angeles Dodgers. As great as they may seem. Same with the Phillies and the Yankees. I mean, everybody hits their stride at different times. Some of them do it early in the season. Some do it in the middle. Some do it at the end of the season. But for the majority of the year, they're playing about 500 balls. Professional baseball. So as tough as it's been this weekend, at the same time, I said it on Friday morning before this week. I said, worst case scenario, you get swept by the Yankees. You're still around where a lot of people thought you would be in the first 2 months of the year. I mean, we've gone through the schedule multiple times. A tough way to start the season for the San Diego Padres. Playing a ton of teams above 500. Playing teams that expected to win their divisions. Teams expected to make the postseason. And surprisingly enough, the Padres did pretty well against a lot of those teams. Just the 2 best teams have gotten the better of them. But the Padres have played 33 games against teams above 500. They're 17-16. Nobody in the division even comes close to playing that many games against teams above 500. The Dodgers have played 15 games against teams above 500. Giants have played 13. The Diamondbacks have played 25, and the Rockies have played 17. The Padres have played 33 games against teams above 500. The Philadelphia Phillies, by the way, have played 7. Just to put things in perspective. It's not who you play, it's when you play them. Everybody is playing the exact same schedule. And right now, the Padres have played, again, by far, the most games against teams above 500. They've played 33. A tough schedule out of the gate. Any team playing the schedule that the Padres had, I'm not making excuses. I'm just making a point here. Any team that had played the schedule the Padres had just played would be significantly lower in the standings. I mean, let's take the New York Mets. The New York Mets have played 31 games against teams above 500. The New York Mets are 9 games under 500. They've lost 8 of the last 10. They've lost 5 in a row. They're 9 games under 500. The Padres are 1. And with a win today, they're back to 500. The Nationals have played 25 games against teams above 500. They're 4 games under. Nobody has played more games against teams above 500 than the San Diego Padres. The only other team that's close is the Chicago White Sox. They've played 32. They're 6-26 against teams above 500. They're 15-38 on the season. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of these teams that are above 500 get to play the White Sox a bunch of times, but nobody comes close to what the Padres' schedule was in the first 2 months. Padres already this season played the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Diamondbacks, and the Rockies, everybody in their division. They've played the Phillies, who are the best team in the National League. They've played the Braves, who are the 4th best team in the National League, 2nd best team in the NL East. They've played the Brewers, who are the 1st place team in the Central. They've played the Cubs, who are the 2nd best team in the Central. The Cardinals are the 3rd best team in the Central. So the fact that they're only a game under 500 is not bad. It's a tough stretch to start the season. To start the season with, by the way, not having Luis Ariz the entire time. With having guys like Jackson Merrill have to go out there and perform as a rookie, and has done a great job. With guys like Jurickson Profar living above his contract. Have the big stars performed to their level? Probably not. But they're 1 game above 5, or 1 game under 500 with the schedule they played. 33 games against teams above 500. I've already said my hater piece. I'm saying my positive piece now. I think that's significant. Like I said, the Phillies, who are the best team in baseball right now, 38-15, have played 7 games against teams above 500. Flip the schedule. You can play the what-if game. Maybe you flip the schedule. Is it better? Maybe. Maybe the Padres are that. I don't think they're as good as the Phillies. I mean, we've seen them play like that. But I'm just saying. I'm just a guy asking questions. So despite Friday night, which was awful, despite Saturday, which was non-competitive, despite some of these performances the Padres have had, I've said it before, I'll say it again, it's not a complete product yet. Padres just have to be around 500 after the first 2 months. Now, that being said, they do need to be a lot better against teams that stink. I mean, getting swept by the Rockies is unacceptable, and we'll see what they do against the Marlins, right? We talked about May being a tough month, the first 2 months being really tough. But it's what you do against some of these bad teams coming up that matters. Because we're like, hey, look, you got a break coming up in June. You got the Marlins coming to town. But if you lose 2 out of 3 of the Marlins, I mean, I can't make excuses for you anymore. But as of right now, here's your excuse, Padres fans. Or at least the justification. Played 33 games against teams above 500. It's the most by anybody in baseball. They're 17-16 against those teams. They're 1 game under 500. Just saying. 1 hour in the books, 1 hour to go. If you want to join the show, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning from 8 to 10. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Hour number 2 on the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning, talking San Diego sports with all of y'all. Thanks again for making our morning a part of yours here on 97.3 The Fan. Local sports talk. What you love to hear on the weekends. You don't get a lot of that on the weekends. This is the only local sports talk show on the weekend, aside from, obviously, the Eco Water SoCal pregame show with Sam Levitt. We dive into some other things, too. Obviously, during the Padres season, it's going to be a lot more Padres than anything else. But lots to talk about in the San Diego sports world. Big congratulations to the University of San Diego winning the West Coast Conference tournament after winning the West Coast Conference outright during the regular season. They are expected to get a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament for college baseball, but they are right there on the cusp of potentially hosting a regional here in San Diego at Fowler Park. Regional host sites will be announced tonight. And I will be at the lunch party tomorrow for USD and see where they're headed or maybe hosting. They'll announce the host sites, like I mentioned, tonight at 5 o'clock. It'd be nice to see San Diego be able to host an event as that. USD has done such a great job. So congratulations to Brock Ungrich and company for bringing home the West Coast Conference Tournament trophy. That is the second West Coast Conference tournament in baseball that Brock Ungrich and company have won in the last 3 years. They have now won the regular season outright this year and have won 2 conference tournaments. And we'll see where they go in the regionals, but a big congratulations to them. I was talking about some of these contracts over the weekend, or on Friday, sorry. These gigantic contracts that have been dished out. And I got some data on a lot of them, and not all of them, and it's just insane what these players do after these contracts. Some of them are still justified. Like, you could take Zach Wheeler, for example. I mean, he signed a 5-year, $118 million deal for $23 million a year. He's got a 1.40 ERA plus during that time. 49-28 with a 3.01 ERA, 751 strikeouts, 156 walks, and a 20.7 WAR. Is that worth $25 million or $23 million a year? I'd say so. There's a lot of ones that are like iffy, right? I mean, we all know Anthony Rendon's contract's awful. You guys like Nolan Arenado. Give him 9 years, $275 million deal. $30.5 million a year. He's played 92% of their games. 279 average, 839 OPS, 142 homers, 122 OPS plus, 23 WAR, 4-time All-Star. Is that worth the contract? It's possible. Is that what you want out of one of those contracts? This week, Hal Steinbrenner, talked about how the Yankees' payroll is not sustainable. It's not sustainable the way it's going. And with Juan Soto asking for this gigantic deal, have we seen the end of large contracts in Major League Baseball? The answer to that, I think, is twofold. I think, one, a lot of teams that already have players under contract for a long time will no longer sign long-term contracts, but that doesn't mean they're not going to disappear, because I think there's enough teams that are dumb that will give these contracts out. So the question to you, everybody out there, and you can call in and give me your answer. You can weigh in on the chat, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. What does a player have to do to warrant $30 to $40 million a year? Is there anything even possible to account for that? To me, if you're going to pay somebody $30 to $40 million a year, he's got to be an all-star every year. He's got to be, at least if he's a position player, in the top 15 in batting in Major League Baseball every year under that contract. OPS plus has to be at least 130, I would say. Now, whether or not he's a power hitter or a contact hitter are two different things. I think that results in two different types of stat categories, but the guy's got to be he's got to be a stud. I mean, he's got to be a dude for $30 to $40 million a year. You look at guys like Manny Machado. Now, the thing is with the Padres, and I made this point on Friday, I think it's a little bit different for San Diego. I would even consider Aaron Judge to be one of those players. I mean, I don't think Aaron Judge is worth $40 million a year. I don't think Aaron Judge is worth $40 million a year. It's a lot of home runs. He gets hurt a lot. $40 million for him? I know he's kicked the Padres' ass the last couple of nights, but for a guy that gets hurt a lot, $40 million a year, that's a long period of time you're paying Aaron Judge. And he ain't going to be playing center field for the majority of that time. I mean, eventually he will probably turn into a DH. But you're paying him $40 million a year until 2031. He's already 32, and he's already missed a significant amount of time with injuries. $40 million a year for a guy like Aaron Judge? I don't know about that. Like Juan Soto is expected to get this huge deal. I think Juan Soto is one of the best hitters in baseball. But he's not worth $40 million a year. I mean, to me, anybody making 40 or more needs to be like Shohei Ohtani. He's got to be able to do more than one thing. He's got to be able to pitch. I think the Ohtani thing's warranted, but Ohtani's warranted for other reasons. It's called marketing and sales and advertising, and you bought that guy for life. I mean, that contract makes sense. I mean, Aaron Judge, $40 million. Yankees are in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation with that. You either let the guy that broke Roger Maris's record walk, or you overpay for him because you gave him a contract for something that he accomplished, not what he's going to do. I don't think Aaron Judge is worth $40 million. I also don't really think Xander Bogaerts is worth $25 million. I'm not sitting here defending the Padres contracts. Padres contracts are not great. I mean, Manny Machado is a Padres, done fairly well. He's getting $30 million a year. He's got to get more. I mean, it's got to turn into more really quickly. I mean, this year and next year are kind of a discount for Manny on his new extension to try to give the Padres an opportunity to build around him with other pieces to keep it under the luxury tax threshold. But in 2027, you're going to give Manny Machado $40 million. I don't know if that's justified at his age. I mean, look at Manny's stats. Manny as a Padre, 272 batting average, a 340 on base, 485 slug, 825 OPS, 128 OPS plus, all great numbers. Worth $39 million a year for that? I don't. From an on-field perspective, no. Still good though. I think it's different for the Padres. I'm going to explain that in just a second. Start going through some of these contracts. I mean, they make no sense for what they're getting. I mean, Francisco Lindor was given the moon. Remember, he had to get a contract that was bigger than Fernando's. Francisco Lindor signed a 10-year, $341 million deal. He's getting $31 million a year with the New York Mets. As a New York Met, a 249 batting average, a 766 OPS, and a 114 OPS plus. It's not worth it. He's getting paid for what he accomplished in Cleveland. He's not getting paid for what he's going to do as a Met. And you make the mistake. Long-term deals are brutal. And sometimes they work out. Sometimes they work out. Let's talk about Joey Votto for a second. Joey Votto in 2014 signed a 10-year, $225 million deal, which at the time was one of the biggest in baseball. $22 million a year. It's a significant chunk of change in 2014. His career is now complete, with the contract being complete. He played in 1,104 games out of 1,358. He played in 81.2% of all Reds games during his time as a Red, counting for injuries, days off, all that stuff. During that time, he hit .280 with an .895 OPS, 193 home runs, a 136 OPS plus, a 28.6 WAR, and he was a two-time All-Star. I would justify that 10 years, 225. I would say that's a justifiable contract for what he did. Not a bad contract. Giancarlo Stanton, in 2015, signed a 13-year, $325 million deal with the Marlins that the Yankees are currently paying. $25 million a year. He's only played in 66% of the games for his teams. He's hitting .251, but has hit 261 home runs with a 133 OPS plus and a 22.9 WAR and 3 All-Star appearances. 66% of games, not very high. I don't know if that's worth 25 a year. 261 home runs, 858 OPS. I mean, that's kind of around the range, I would imagine, the going rate for a player at around 133 OPS plus. Again, I think that's justifiable. Miguel Cabrera, in 2016, signed an 8-year, $248 million deal. Got 31 average annual value towards the salary or luxury tax threshold, whatever. He played in 72% of games for the Tigers, hit .272, 758 OPS, 103 home runs, a 106 OPS plus, and his WAR was 2.4. Rough. These contracts don't make any sense, and I think teams are starting to come wise to this and realize that they're not justifiable unless you win. Bryce Harper contract's not too bad. He's played in 80% of their games. He's hit .284 during that time, a 932 OPS on his 13-year, $330 million deal, 135 home runs, 150 OPS plus, and a 20.5 WAR. That makes sense. Full. No trade clause. He's committed. No opt-outs. Not bad. But again, it brings me to this Juan Soto contract, and I know he's young at 25 years old. But if you're the New York Yankees, I can understand where Hal Steinbrenner's coming from a couple occasions. One, you already have those contracts on the books. You are already paying a guy $40 million in Aaron Judge. And this is the New York Yankees. You got Garrett Cole under contract through 2028, making $36 million. Carlos Rodon's making $27.8 through 2028. Stanton's still under control through 2027. That's a lot of money, plus everybody else you have to pay on your roster, and you're already over the luxury tax, estimated luxury tax payroll. They're at 312. That's over like the highest tier. You're going to add an extra $40 million to that contract, or to that group? Then all of a sudden, you're paying hundreds of millions of dollars to other teams in baseball. It makes no sense. Who's going to give that kind of contract to a guy that projects to be a designated hitter? And I think Juan's a great player. I think he's one of the best players in Major League Baseball at the plate. I wish he was still a San Diego Padre. And again, I understand why he's not. But for the amount of money he's expected to get, why? I mean, what justifies that kind of contract aside from the fact that you just want to bring him in? I do think the Tatis contract will be a steal when it's all said and done. But the question again remains, will these teams continue to dish out these contracts? I think we've seen the peak of a lot of these major contracts. I think a lot of teams like the New York Yankees, the Atlanta Braves, the Los Angeles Dodgers, San Diego Padres, Philadelphia Phillies, teams that have dished out major deals, at least two of them, I don't think they're going to be dishing out any more major deals because they have to pay for all these players for a long period of time. I think it's going to be like some team like the Marlins or something, even though they don't have a lot of money. I mean, it's going to be a team that wants to make a big splash. I kind of teased before about how it makes sense for the Padres. I said it on Friday too. I had a whole thing on it. The contracts for the Padres are different than all these other teams because the Padres have never had a core group of players. At least during my lifetime. And I've been around now for 29 years in San Diego. And growing up for me as a Padres fan, I said this on Friday, you didn't have any players. You didn't have that one consistent player that you knew was going to be on the Padres every single year. Because anytime that they got good enough, they got shipped off elsewhere. And again, it's a different ownership. And it was the small market team thing, and it was a revolving door of players. And everybody in the group, everybody in the chat on YouTube was listing all these random Padres that they remember watching. The only one that was consistent, at least during my lifetime, was like Jake Peavy for a while. And that was like before I got to high school. And for a little bit, it was Adrian Gonzalez. And aside from that, that was pretty much it. It was a brand new team almost every year. You almost had to sign some of these players if you're the Padres. You had to give a core group of stars that people know who they are. Where you know that's a San Diego Padre. You're almost buying Manny Machado to be a face for the organization for a long period of time. And we don't have too many of those left. When you think about the San Diego Padres, you think about Tony Gwynn, obviously. But, again, when Tony was playing, because somebody was like, Tony? Yeah. Tony, I was 3 years old when they went to the World Series in 98. Tony was done playing in the early 2000s. I was like 2001. I mean, start doing the math. I mean, I was not very old. I was like 6. Tony's last year is 2001. I was 6. So obviously I don't remember Tony Gwynn being part of the team. I remember some stuff, but I didn't get to watch. I watched the tail end of his career. And after Tony, it was like you had nobody else. Look at the retired numbers they have. Tony Gwynn, no longer with us. His son's with us. It's great that Tony Gwynn Jr. is part of the organization, part of our radio station. But it's Tony Gwynn, it's Trevor Hoffman, it's Randy Jones, it's Dave Winfield, and it's Steve Garvey. I mean, those are the retired numbers. And Steve Garvey's a Dodger. You don't have those players. You didn't, and for the majority of the 2000s, you didn't have anybody. It's a revolving door of players. You had to set this core, and now they're under lock for a long period of time. So now kids can buy jerseys and not have to worry about these guys getting dealt. But your staples are guys like Chase Headley. I mean, good for Chase, but Chase Headley and Manny Machado are not even close to being the same player. Chase Headley finished his career with a 106 OPS plus. I mean, that's the guy. Heath Bell was great. Heath Bell still lives in San Diego. Heath Bell, big supporter. But it's 3-time. That's it. I mean, he played for the Padres for 5 years. Didn't have these guys for a long period of time. I mean, some of the names that are thrown out there, it's funny. They weren't here for a while. So what the Padres did with these contracts, they bought new faces of the franchise for a long period of time. And Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts and Fernando Tatis Jr., hometown product Joe Musgrove, Yu Darvish, Jake Cronenworth. They have gotten the players now where you can have their faces on all this stuff. They can identify with the organization where you know that they are a longtime Padre. They're building a core fan base with the young fans. I mean, there's something to that. Especially in this day and age. I mean, there's not a lot of kids. I mean, when you see, for me, and I know I got to get to a break, but for me, the way I view, and people always like, oh, you're gatekeeping fandom. This is how I justify fans of teams without calling you a bandwagoner. Your city, where you are from, the team your parents grew up watching that have instilled it in you. And that, I mean, relative, and the school you went to, / schools that, your family attends. To me, that's about it. That's about it. And in this day and age, I mean, parents let their kids root on whoever. It's fine. I mean, that's just not me. And I think the Padres are getting the benefit of that right now. But in this day and age of like kids being able to, root for whoever they want, which is fine. Again, different. I'm different than that. But to try to win some of these kids over, I mean, you got to have some. First of all, you got to have good players. You have to win games. Padres are doing both of those. I mean, at least they're competitive enough where kids are involved. But you can't have your favorite players get traded all the time. And yeah, these guys are all-stars too. They bought all-stars and stars that people can recognize and people across the country can recognize and follow and be and talk about how fun the team is. They needed to make these contract moves. Is it the best case scenario for on-field product? No, it's not. It's great for marketing, though. It's great for growing the game. For an organization that has to take over San Diego after the Chargers left, they did a great job. I can't be mad at a lot of these contracts. The only one you could be somewhat mad at is Xander Bogaerts because it didn't make sense, but he's on the team now. You can't be overzealous about him. You can't be freaking out about him. But a lot of these contracts that the Padres, it's different for the Padres because they needed a core to build around, whereas these other organizations, they already had players for a long period of time and history and everything like that. That's why I think it's justified for the Padres. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let me know what you guys think about that when we come back. Talk more about these contracts. Also, the news with the NCAA is nuts. We'll get into that if we have time. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Braden Surprenant Show live and local each and every Sunday morning from 8 to 10. I'm Braden Surprenant. Thanks again for tuning in to the broadcast. Thanks again for making our morning a part of yours. And remember why we are taking the holiday this weekend. Again, for all those that have fought and died for us in foreign lands and domestic lands, protecting our freedoms, Memorial Weekend is for them. And to remember what they have given us to when we can live the lives that we live because of them. And a much appreciation to all of those that have fought and died for the defending of our freedoms and the defending of this country, of the United States. It's a great place to live, a great place for all of us. So blessed for all of us to be here in San Diego, and a lot has to do with our military personnel that have given their lives for the betterment of ours. And that's the point of this weekend, and Memorial Day weekend. Different from Veterans Day, which is in November, where you celebrate everybody that you know that has served in the military. This is for all of those who have passed away in defending our freedoms. So remember that when we are consuming our barbecues and having a good time. I want to know what everybody's barbecuing today. I think I'm going to do some ribs today. Go to Costco and get some ribs. Throw those on the smoker. Watch the pods a little bit. I'm making mac and cheese on the side. I have been trying to master ribs. This is the one thing that has eluded me for so long. I have so many different recipes that I've tried. There's a place in Nashville that I love getting. It's called Peg Leg Porker. Amazing. They go with a dry rub on the ribs, and I've been trying to master it myself, and sometimes it's overcooked, sometimes it's not. I like that little bit of bite, too, in the ribs. Like, I don't need the thing to shred off the bone. That's too much. I need a little bit of a bite. Not it's tender where you take a bite and you have a little bite mark in it. That's the best type, in my opinion. A little dry rub on top. I think they dry rub it after they cook it again. So I'm trying to master that. I'm going to give it another chance again today. I've done the brisket multiple times. I got the brisket down. Brisket's tough because even when you do everything right, sometimes it doesn't work out. But that's something I've done a couple of times now. I've done the pulled pork. I've done a lot of these things. But the ribs, I've been able to cook ribs and people have liked them. But I want to get to a point where I love the ribs to myself, to my standards. So I'm going to try that. Maybe making mac and cheese on the side as well. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. If you haven't done it already, follow me on social media, B_SURP. Hit the like button on YouTube. All of y'all watching on YouTube, all 39 of you right now, get the likes up. Helps with the algorithm. Again, thanks for all of you for calling in as well. Let's go out to Brandon in El Cajon. Brandon, how's your holiday weekend going?
It's going okay. How about yourself?
Doing well. Went to the game last night. Came home for a nice trip throughout the week. Looking forward to doing some grilling later.
Hey, thanks again for having this Sunday show. You got to take over the show during the week. And anyways, thank goodness right now the Stanley Cup playoffs are going on. They're really great. For the Padres, they look like the same team as last year. We know it wasn't Bob Melvin, it wasn't Juan Soto. This team it looks like they'll have a great game where they're fun to watch, and then they kind of just don't bring it the next couple of games. I don't know. I got to disagree with you about these contracts too. I think if you replace the big three on the Padres with a couple of Jackson Merrills and a Jurickson Profar, they're a better team.
They are a better team, but you know what? Nobody's going to games, Brandon.
I don't know.
The 40,000 people. I'm going to tell you they're not. You want to know why they're not, Brandon? Because in the mid-2000s, people weren't going. I know they were bad, but 2010, they had a good team in 2010. It took until the end of August for Padres fans to be like, hey, this is let's go check it out. It's different. There's a different side of this more than just on the field product. It's a professional sports are the entertainment business. And the reason why people go to Petco Park is because they got stars and they know that those stars are going to show up and show out. And I know they haven't really done that right now. And I do agree with you, Brandon. In terms of the on-field product, absolutely. There might be some guys that are playing their ass off to try to get a contract that might play better than some of the guys that they have under contract for a long period of time. But to me, the contracts are justifiable in terms of building a fan base and a young fan base of kids being able to buy jerseys and all that fun stuff, not necessarily the on-the-field product. So I do agree with what you're saying, but I understand why the Padres put these contracts out there, and I think, to be honest with you, it needed to be done.
Yeah, I see your point too, but none of these guys are Willie Mays. It's just I guess for me it's about the watching the actual game of baseball being played, not all the T-shirts. I don't care about any of that stuff. So yeah, I guess I see your point.
Right, and you know what, Brandon? I mean, that you're the type of fan that I am too. And the thing is they know you're going to show up all the time. I mean, you and I are going to watch all the time, but they're trying to get kids that are not really interested. They're trying to get other fans and the casual fans. I mean, that's the difference. If you look at like just the fans that are like us, the diehard fans that are living and dying with every pitch, right, that are all about the game, and you go to Petco Park, you're not worried about what the food and the beer prices are because you bring your own hot dog to the game because you're just there for the game. That's about 13,000 of us on a Tuesday night against the Rockies back in the 2010s. Now you got 43,000 at a Rockies game on a Tuesday night because of all of this other stuff that you brought together. And that's the business side of professional sports. That's growing the game. That's growing Padres fans. That's why you see, and I've seen this already a couple of times during these college baseball tournaments, you got kids in the stands wearing Padres hats still because they love some of the players on the team because some of the stars are giving a spotlight to San Diego. That is what you're paying for on top of the play on the field. Have they lived up to their contract in terms of on the field this year? Not right now, but have they lived up to it in terms of what they bring in terms of a spotlight on the Padres? I think the answer to that question is yes.
Yeah, a lot of people at the Padre games are looking at their phones.
That's right. Hey, you know what? It's a place to be. It's just this day and age of people, man.
Hey, you know what? One of the best things I've seen this year, one of the games they were playing somewhere on the road. I don't remember whether it was Florida or where it was, but I actually heard over the TV broadcast the Hassan Kim chant when he was up to bat.
I hear that everywhere they go. I mean, he's a fan favorite. He's a fan favorite. Brandon, I appreciate the phone call.
Show.
All right, thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it. I'll talk to you next time. Yeah, people love Hassan Kim. Here's my thing, and I always piss people off when I say this, but it's just like, I don't know. The amount of hate that Xander Bogaerts gets and the amount of love that Hassan Kim gets, and they basically have put together the same season. And Xander's actually put together better numbers than Hassan Kim has. I find it funny. I find it entertaining. I think the Padres should have traded Hassan Kim for the season. But now he's untradeable because he has played poorly. So we'll see how that plays out. Padres are going to get a win today. They're going to get a win today against the Yankees, and I think the panic will stop for a second. We'll kind of preview that when we come back, talk more, take more of your phone calls, talk more of these contracts. It's the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Final segment of the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, each and every Sunday morning from 8 to 10. I'm Braden Surprenant. Thanks again for joining us and making our morning a part of yours. This holiday weekend, Memorial Day weekend, for the Padres this weekend. 0-2 so far. Trying to flip the script today. We have a 3:40 game tomorrow for Memorial Day. We will not have any live shows tomorrow. It will be Sam Levitt on the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show tomorrow. And again, obviously today, but no live shows on Monday. Everybody taking the day off. And we'll see you guys back on Tuesday. I'm Braden Surprenant again. Thanks again for tuning into the show. If you want to follow me on social media, at @B_SURP. Follow me on Twitter /X. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok and YouTube. I got a YouTube page too. We post other things besides just the Braden Surprenant Show, which we are streaming live on YouTube, my account, the fan account, Facebook, Twitch, both X accounts, my own and 97 through the fan. And a shout out to all of you watching on my YouTube or my Instagram page as well. Instagram Live. Seen a couple people make some comments. I don't get to see a lot of the comments on Instagram, so you're watching on Instagram. Thanks again for tuning in, but I don't get to see a lot of them because it doesn't link on here with the chat for some reason. The Twitter ones don't, and neither do Instagram, which is odd to me. I don't get to see those, but it is what it is. Give us a like on the YouTube page if you haven't already. And again, thanks for supporting us on the weekend. Talking Padres baseball with you, talking local sports that we don't get to talk about on the weekends. It's usually national media stuff, and it's a great opportunity for us to be able to grow our brand here at 97.3 and be live and local for almost the entire week. Padres, after the loss last night, dropped to 3-14 in night games at home, which is really remarkable how bad that is. It's almost inexplainable. And there's not really any solutions to it. But I was mentioning earlier about how disheartening it is for Padres fans. I mean, they've gotten everybody invested in going to the games. And people are still sticking with the momentum of the Padres and going to these night games. The atmosphere is great. It's just the last thing they need is win the games. 3-14. Another loss again last night. I mean, my buddy Matt was at the game last night. I was there with him. And to be honest with you, as much as we like to blame Matt for all these losses, he's gotten to a lot of night games. I mean, you're 3-14 in night games. There's a lot of people like Matt right now that haven't seen the Padres win at home, that have been at losses that Matt hasn't been to either. It's not like he's been to, the 17 losses at home. He hasn't, even though he's 1-10 at Petco Park. There's a lot of people like Matt, the family that sits in front of us, who have known a long time. I mean, they haven't seen a Padres win at home yet either. There might be some season ticket packages of the 20 gamers that have like the different days, right? The Monday, Saturday. I haven't seen the Padres win one game all year. A Monday, Saturday, they're both night games. Except for probably the comeback win against the Cubs. I mean, think about that. If they didn't come back against the Cubs on that Monday night, they would be 2-15 at home in night games. Yeah, as Roberto Pico says, good thing we're playing during the day today. Absolutely. Yeah, see, look, Jake Waters in the chat. He also hasn't seen a Padres win yet at home. I mean, there's fans in other cities that have seen the Padres win more times on the road than they've seen them play at home and win. Amazing. The good news is, though, Padres fans, they played during the day today. So that's a plus. Because playing at home is not very good for them right now. But they get to play during the day. One of the plus. Another plus for the Padres today is they are going against Clark Schmidt, who's a right-handed pitcher. So I don't have to even see a lefty. Another good point of information. Good news. As Jeff West says in the chat as well, I'm 6-13 in home games this year. Sad. Yeah, it's not a good record either. I mean, my record's not very good, but I went to a couple of the date games that the Padres have won. Luckily. Even though we've already talked about how poorly they've played at home this year, I said it on Friday, I'll say it again. The Padres, and I said this earlier too about what they're doing against teams with 500 or better. Padres have played the most games against teams 500 or better. They're 17-16. They've played 33 games against teams above 500. That's the most by far out of any other team, aside from like the White Sox, who have just perpetually gotten their ass handed to them all season. But again, look back at the standings. Padres against teams above 500, they're 17-16. That's 33 games against teams above 500. Nobody else even comes close. The only other close team would be the Chicago White Sox, who have played 32. Going down the list, Dodgers have played 15 against teams above 500. The Giants have played 13. The Diamondbacks have played 25. The Rockies have played 17. Braves have played 20. Nationals have played 25. Mets have played 31. They're 11-20 in 9 games under 500. Marlins have played 25. And the Phillies have played 7. They've played 7 games against teams above 500. They're 38-15 on the year. Maybe you flip the schedules and the Padres are better. Maybe that's the reason why the Phillies are playing teams that are not above 500, because they keep knocking teams below it. But you could go through the Phillies schedule. I mean, they've already played the Rockies both home and away. They're finishing up that series this weekend. I think the Phillies are good, by the way. I think they're probably one of the teams to beat in the National League, if not the team to beat in the National League. So I don't want to take anything away from them. But their series to start the year, they played Atlanta and went 1-2. Atlanta's one of the teams above 500. They've played the Reds and went 1-2 to start the year. Reds aren't even one of those teams that are above 500. They played the Nationals. They've played the Cardinals. They've played the Pirates, the Rockies, the White Sox, the Reds again. They're done with the Reds. Padres, Angels, Giants, Blue Jays, Marlins, Mets, Nationals. They did do well against the Rangers. Rockies again. And then the Giants. Phillies will not play a team above 500 until June 3rd when they play the Brewers, who are in first place. It will be the first time that they play a first-place team all year. And then they got the Mets again. And then the Red Sox, who are at 500 right now. And then they will finally play the Orioles June 14th before playing the Padres, who are hopefully above 500 at that point. And then again, it's the Diamondbacks, the Tigers, the Fish. And then they finally play some tough competition with Cubs, Braves, and Dodgers to start July. But again, it's different. Different schedules. It's not who you play, it's when you play them. Phillies have played a very easy schedule at the beginning of the season. Padres have played a very difficult schedule at the beginning of the season. Maybe the Padres are 3 or 4 games above 500 with the Phillies schedule. But they're not. They do need to be better against bad teams. They get to play one of those tomorrow against the Miami Marlins. But the fact that they are so bad at home at night is just so disheartening for a lot of Padres fans that pack that place each and every night. Be nice to salvage the weekend against the Yankees, win today. You're back to 500, and you are exactly where we expected them to be after the first 2 months of the schedule that they've had. They'd be 18-16 against teams above 500. They can figure out the home stuff later, but the month of June, it's a little bit easier, and then it gets really easy in July and August for the San Diego Padres, where they can make up ground, and you never know what the Padres are going to have up their sleeve when it comes to the trade deadline, especially in a make it or break it year for A.J. Preller in the front office. But they've made it through, Padres fans. They've made it through. They could lose 15-0 today to the Yankees. Who cares? So what? Move on to the next one. You finish one game under 500 for the first 2 months when you played the toughest schedule in Major League Baseball. I'm sure there's another team that's got a tougher schedule. But based on teams that are above 500 right now and the amount of games you played against, nobody has played more games against teams above 500 than the San Diego Padres. Month of June, Royals are playing pretty good ball. Not world beaters. Angels, Diamondbacks, A's, Mets. Then you got the Phillies and Braves, which is tough. Nationals, Red Sox. A little bit easier of a slate. And then you get to July, play the Rangers, Diamondbacks, Mariners, Braves for the All-Star break. And then after the All-Star break, you got the Nationals on the schedule. You get to play into August. August is great for the Padres. Rockies, Pirates, Marlins, Pirates, Rockies. Except for the fact that the Padres can't beat the Rockies. But they got to be able to start taking care of business against teams that are poor. Finally play the Mets in late August, and then September, Tigers, who will be out of it by that time, Giants twice, who you're competing with, White Sox finally. So there's reason to be optimistic, despite the fact that they have been outclassed by the two best teams in Major League Baseball. But that's some perspective. And I try to be a fair guy on the show. I mean, call them out when things aren't going well, for certain things that need to be fixed, but also understand the context of the situation. It's not all bad. It's not all good. That's why you can't live and die on all these games. Hopefully Joe Musgrove can have a bounce-back outing today for the Padres. Now, he looked like he was laboring there in Cincinnati. They need him to get back on track quickly. And you know he's doing everything he can right now to try to get to that point. That'll do it for me. Enjoy Padres baseball today. Enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day weekend. No talk shows tomorrow. Ben and Woods will kick things off on Tuesday at 6 in the morning. Annie and Elston from 10 to 2. And then Gwen and Chris from 2 to 6. Hopefully you continue to have a great weekend. I'm Braden Surprenant signing off. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.